People often describe Dagestan fighters as unstoppable. They talk about genetics. They talk about natural toughness. But the reality is much simpler. Dagestan fighters aren't built by secret techniques. They're built by routine discipline and repetition. Training there is basic moves. No hype, no shortcuts. Wrestling starts young, conditioning is constant, and quitting is not part of the culture. What makes this system effective isn't intensity. It's consistency day after day. The same work whether you feel ready or not. This approach looks surprisingly similar to old-school boxing gyms, where fighters were shaped by daily work rather than motivation. In this video, we're breaking down how Dagestan fighters actually train, what works, what doesn't, and why this environment produces such mentally durable athletes. No myths, no exaggeration, just the system. To understand how Dagestani fighters train, you first have to understand Dagestan itself. Dagestan is a mountainous republic in Russia's North Caucasus region, home to roughly 3 million people and dozens of ethnic groups. The terrain is demanding: steep mountains, cold winters, and historically limited resources. Life in this region has long required physical endurance, discipline, and strong community bonds. Combat sports, especially wrestling, developed naturally in this environment. In Dagestan, wrestling is not treated as a niche sport. It is a respected discipline and a common part of childhood. Many children begin training at a young age, often in local sports schools or community gyms. By their teenage years, dedicated wrestlers may already have more mat time than many professionals elsewhere. What separates Dagestani wrestling from many other systems is its social importance. Success is closely tied to family, reputation, and personal responsibility. Athletes are expected to represent their family, their coach, and their community with discipline and humility. When fighters like Khabib Nurmagomedov speak about training for their father or their family name, they are describing a genuine cultural expectation, not a marketing narrative. Over time, this system has produced Olympic champions, world-level wrestlers, and elite mixed martial artists. Often without advanced facilities or modern technology, many training halls remain basic, with a heavy emphasis on fundamentals. The strength of the system lies in continuity. Experienced coaches, early development, and consistent daily work. While many athletes elsewhere are driven primarily by personal ambition, Dagestani fighters are motivated by duty, identity, and responsibility, a psychological foundation that becomes visible under pressure. The mountain training philosophy. Now let's talk about one of the most iconic aspects of Dagestani training. The mountains. You've probably seen the videos. Fighters running up steep mountain trails, wrestling on rocky ground, training in harsh conditions. This isn't for social media content. This is a fundamental part of the training philosophy. The mountains serve multiple purposes. First, there's the obvious physical benefit. Altitude training at higher elevations. There's less oxygen, which forces your body to adapt by producing more red blood cells. This improves cardiovascular endurance and recovery. Mountain training in Dagestan starts with running and sprints. Fighters regularly run steep mountain trails, often at altitude and in cold conditions. These runs build exceptional cardiovascular endurance, leg strength, and lung capacity. Sprinting uphill forces the body to work harder, with less oxygen, improving stamina and recovery. When these fighters compete at sea level, their conditioning gives them a clear advantage. Wrestling in the mountains comes next. Training on uneven, rocky ground forces constant balance adjustments. There's no flat surface, no predictable footing. Every movement requires control and coordination. This develops stronger stabilizer muscles, better foot placement, and an ability to stay balanced under pressure. As a result, Dagestani fighters are difficult to off-balance and highly adaptable in scrambles. Another common method is training with rocks. Fighters lift and rotate heavy stones above their heads, carry them over distance, or use them for resistance work. These movements build raw shoulder strength, grip endurance, core stability, and full body power. Unlike machines, rocks shift and resist unpredictably, forcing the body to work as a single unit. Body weight. Exercises are also central to mountain training. Push, UPS, dips, and rope climbing are performed regularly, often outdoors and in cold conditions. Push, UPS, and dips develop upper body endurance and pressing strength, while rope climbing builds grip strength, back strength, and coordination. These exercises directly support wrestling, control and clinch strength without unnecessary bulk. The harsh climate ties everything together. Training in cold weather forces the body to work harder to maintain performance, building resilience and mental toughness. Fighters learn to operate when conditions are uncomfortable and imperfect, exactly what they'll face in a real fight. The daily training structure. So what does a typical training day look like for a Dagestani fighter? While exact routines vary depending on age, experience, and competition schedule, training generally follows a consistent, high-volume structure. Morning sessions usually begin early, often around 6 or 7 a.m. This first session is commonly dedicated to general conditioning and movement preparation. Road work is a regular component, as we already discussed, including running on roads, trails or hilly terrain, to develop aerobic capacity and overall endurance. These sessions are often followed by calisthenics, plyometric exercises, or basic functional strength work. The primary technical session of the day typically focuses on wrestling. Training blocks often last between 90 minutes and 2 hours and include takedown drilling, positional work, and extended live wrestling. Emphasis is placed on pressure control and work rate, reflecting the demands of competitive grappling rather than light or purely technical movement. Midday is generally reserved for rest and recovery. Meals are usually simple and practical, based on readily available whole foods such as meat, vegetables, bread, and dairy, rather than complex or highly individualized nutrition plans. The focus is on consistency, sufficient caloric intake, and sustaining energy for multiple daily sessions. Afternoon or evening, training often shifts towards striking. While wrestling remains the foundation, modern Dagestani fighters increasingly incorporate boxing and kickboxing. Sessions commonly include pad work, heavy bag training, technical combinations, and controlled sparring, with an emphasis on efficiency and applicability to mixed martial arts. Grappling work may be revisited later in the day with an MMA-specific focus. This includes cage control, ground positioning, and transitions that account for strikes. These sessions connect traditional wrestling skills to the realities of professional competition. Strength and conditioning are typically integrated across the training week rather than separated into dedicated bodybuilding sessions. Training emphasizes functional movements, such as bodyweight exercises, kettlebells, basic lifting patterns, and resistance drills that support grappling strength, durability, and endurance. Much of their strength and conditioning work took place in the mountains, using the harsh terrain and elevation to naturally build stamina, power, and resilience, as we already discussed. Core conditioning is especially important, often built through medicine ball throws, combined with sit UPS and other midline stability exercises to develop explosive rotational power and resilience. Recovery is essential due to the overall workload. Common practices include stretching, sauna use, swimming, and taking dips in cold mountain pools to reduce inflammation and aid circulation, all aimed at managing fatigue and maintaining long-term performance. The team training dynamic. A key factor in Dagestani training success is the team-based structure. Fighters rarely train alone and instead develop within close-knit groups where training partners consistently push one another. In both Dagestan and gyms, like American Kickboxing Academy in the United States, multiple elite fighters train together daily. Figures such as Khabib Nurmagomedov, Islam Makhachev, and Umar Nurmagomedov have long trained alongside each other, creating an environment where sparring partners are often as skilled as, or more skilled than, future opponents. Unlike many gyms where elite talent is limited to 1 or 2 individuals, the Dagestani system features depth. Regular training often involves national or international level athletes, which raises the overall competitive standard and accelerates development. Mentorship is central to the system. Experienced fighters routinely guide younger athletes, passing down technical knowledge, training habits, and discipline. Coaches like Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov emphasize this continuity throughout their careers. The team environment enforces accountability. High effort is expected, and lapses are immediately noticeable. This creates consistent discipline without the need for external motivation. Ego is minimized in training. Status carries little weight on the mat, allowing fighters to learn openly from mistakes and improve efficiently. Shared cultural and religious values. further strengthen team cohesion, discipline, and long-term commitment. This structure reduces isolation and burnout, which are common in individual sports. Over time, it creates mentally resilient fighters who are comfortable training and competing under constant pressure. The mental game. While the physical training is impressive, what really sets Dagestani fighters apart might be their mental game. Let's break down the psychological factors that make them so dominant. First, there's the concept of discipline over motivation. Western fitness culture often focuses on motivation, getting pumped up, feeling excited to train. Dagestan culture focuses on discipline, training whether you feel like it or not. Motivation is fleeting, discipline is constant. This is why Dagestan fighters maintain such consistency in their training. Second, there's delayed gratification. Many Dagestani fighters grow up with limited resources. They're not training for quick fame or immediate payoffs. They're willing to put in years of brutal training before seeing any return. This patience and long-term thinking translates to strategic fighting. They're not rushing for the knockout. They're systematically breaking opponents down. The pressure to represent their families and communities creates a unique mental dynamic. It's not just about them. It's about everyone back home watching. This could be crushing pressure, but in the Dagestani system, it's channeled into motivation. They're fighting for something bigger than themselves, which provides deep purpose. There's also incredible self-belief developed through the system. When you've been training since childhood, when you've wrestled thousands of rounds, when you've tested yourself against elite competition, daily, you're prepared. This isn't false confidence. It's earned. You see it in how Dagestani fighters carry themselves. They're calm, focused. Certain mental toughness is systematically developed through training in harsh conditions. When you've trained in freezing mountain weather, when you've pushed through exhaustion countless times, a 5-round fight becomes just another day at the office. The discomfort of fighting is something they've prepared for specifically. Another factor is the long-term perspective on losses and setbacks in many Western sports cultures. Losing is catastrophic in Dagestani training culture. Losses in training are learning opportunities. They're not afraid to be put in bad positions, to get submitted, to get taken down, because that's how you improve. This fearlessness in training translates to fearlessness in competition. Finally, there's the element of spiritual faith. Many Dagestani fighters speak openly about how their Islamic faith gives them strength and peace. They believe that outcomes are ultimately in God's hands, which paradoxically removes pressure. They can focus on what they control, their preparation, their effort, and leave the rest to fate. So you're probably not moving to Dagestan to become a fighter. But there are legitimate lessons from this culture that apply to anyone pursuing excellence in any field. Lesson 1, start young and stay consistent. The Dagestani approach shows that mastery comes from years of consistent practice. Whether you're learning a skill, building a business, or pursuing fitness, consistency over time beats intensity in short bursts. Show up every day even when you don't feel like it. Lesson 2, culture matters. Surround yourself with people who share your values and push you to be better. The Dagestani team environment creates accountability and raises everyone's level. Find your team, your community, your accountability partners. Lesson 3, train in discomfort. You don't need to wrestle in the mountains, but you do need to really push outside your comfort zone. Whether that's cold exposure, high-intensity training, or just doing hard things when you don't want to, building that mental toughness pays dividends. Everywhere in life. Lesson 4, master fundamentals. Dagestani fighters are so dominant because they've mastered basic wrestling techniques through endless repetition. In whatever you do, master the basics before chasing advanced techniques. The fundamentals done excellently beat flashy moves done poorly. Lesson 5, embrace functional training. You don't need fancy equipment or complicated programs. Basic movements done with intensity and consistency build incredible fitness. Push UPS, pull UPS, running, wrestling, carrying heavy things. These simple modalities work. Lesson 6, have a bigger purpose. Dagestani fighters train for family, honor community, something beyond themselves. Find your bigger purpose. What are you training for? Who are you doing this for? Purpose sustains you when motivation fades. Lesson 7, stay humble and keep learning. Despite their success, Dagestani fighters remain students of the game. They're always looking to improve, always willing to learn. Ego is the enemy of growth. Stay humble, stay curious, stay coachable. Lesson 8. Respect the process. There are no shortcuts in the Dagestani system. They trust the process of daily training, progressive overload, and systematic improvement. Trust your process, put in the work. Be patient with results. Conclusion. The Dagestani fighting system isn't magic. It's not genetics or secret techniques. It's a culture that values wrestling above almost everything else, that instills discipline and honor from childhood, that creates training environments where excellence is the standard, not the exception. It's thousands of hours on the mat. It's running through mountain trails when your body screams at you to stop. It's pushing cars up hills. It's wrestling round after round after round. It's training when you're tired, hurt, discouraged. It's representing something bigger than yourself. Can you replicate this system entirely? Probably not unless you're willing to move to Dagestan and start from childhood. But you can take the principles: consistency, community discipline, purpose, mental toughness, and apply them to your own life and training. The next time you watch a Dagestani fighter dominate in the cage, remember you're not just watching one person. You're watching generations of knowledge, culture, and dedication. You're watching what happens when an entire region decides that wrestling excellence is a core value. You're watching the result of a system that's been refined over centuries. That's the real secret of how Dagestan fighters train.